Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inspiring Thursday, where we explore key insights, trends, and innovations that are shaping the fashion industry. I'm Foni from Vestis Labs, and today we have an exciting guest with us, Rachel Sheila Kan. Hi, Rachel. So, Rachel is a founder of Circular Earth and a sustainability advocate with over 20 years of experience in the fashion industry. So, Rachel is a leading voice on circularity and transparency. And she's been working with fashion brands to rethink their approach to fashion by focusing on sustainable policy practices, also working on a collaborative project with us here at Vestis Labs, which is called the Sanja Stories. We'll delve into that in more details later on. So welcome to the show, Rachel.
Thanks for having me, Fonny.
So, Rachel, you've had quite a journey in the fashion industry, from design and managing supply chains to becoming a key advocate for sustainability. So, what was the pivotal moment that made you shift your focus towards sustainability and ultimately led to the creation of Circular Earth?
It's been a big journey. And I guess I always thought that there was one pivotal moment, and that was when my mother passed away, and I really went towards it and stuff. But actually, I think it's been an amalgamation over time, right? Even from when I was a young girl and would watch my grandfather recycle these tin cans literally for charity. And also my mother was very into sort of the, nature and that kind of thing. And then over the years, I got into the fashion industry and really saw the mass amount of stuff that was created just for creation's sake, sometimes just for creating mass production and overconsumption and things like that. And it got to a point where I actually sort of felt sick to design anymore, because I was a designer and design manager for 20 years, and then layered this over, right? So yeah, I'd been interested in it for even like 20 years ago, and then started to go to events and things that were very tiny at the time and built up my interest over time. But yeah, the first sort of jump was when my mother passed away, where I was like, actually, I need to stand for this now. And I sat there and saw my kids, looked at my kids who were very young at the time, sort of babies, baby toddler sort of age. And I thought, I want to stand for their future and the future of their children, etc., and everyone else's. So I thought, right, we've got to do something about that. Right? I wasn't even sure what it was.
Yeah, so that's quite a journey that you've had. So now circularity is a big focus for you, and circular fashion is often discussed as a solution to some of the industry's biggest problems. But for those that are not familiar, can you just briefly kind of explain what circular fashion really is and why it's such an essential part of the future of the industry?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, how long?
I know, just your elevator pitch of what circular fashion is.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, right? Because when you first start in sustainability, you really think it's just about the product, right? And you're like, yeah, like if we make product that is really designed in a certain way, it goes back into system over and over. That's possible, right? And I think a lot of people focus on circularity as being just about the product, which is a really important part.
Yes.
But when I started to apply it in real life and work with other circularity professionals like Ken, my business partner in circularity, I really realized how much a part of systems change and the way that we're going to even collect these things and put them back into system, how businesses need to change to reflect a new circular economy. So actually, my sort of view of it morphed into this more regenerative aspect of seeing this as a whole system, and how you actually start to apply that in a new business sense, right? Like, so for me, it is about not just looking at a product, which is important, iterating it, but thinking, okay, how does that sit in with the way my business is run itself, and how does that transform over time? Because we're not going to be able to continually create overproduction. We have to essentially create less and have that work for our business. So we have to be realistic about how we're going to work with these new type of economics. So we focus not only on the product, and we can totally go into that.
Yes.
We also focus on the business models and the structures and systems that will support that transition.
Yeah, so circular fashion is not just a circular product. It's part of a whole circular ecosystem.
100%.
And and you cannot just isolate one part without, having the other.
You can totally have a circular product that's fully circular, but still is unsustainable, right? Yeah. And that's an interesting thing. Right? Circular, but actually you haven't thought about toxins or how that relates to water, or how that relates socially, or how that relates to where you are creating this centrally, right? So it is a whole systems perspective for us, for sure.
And it is a huge kind of system overall change also. And from your perspective then, what are the biggest challenges that you've seen brands face when trying to adopt circular practices, and how they can actually, overcome these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what's the size of the business, right? And that's why I work with nurturing small micro businesses, right? They can be like super agile. They can create this kind of stuff and create examples, which is what we'll talk about later on, right? But they can create these sort of agile examples, but they have a problem with gaining traction, getting like seen, investment, maybe that kind of thing. And some of the fiber people that we work with definitely have trouble with trying to get investment in the system if bigger brands or even medium-sized brands are not giving them letters of intent, for instance. Like they don't even have to create a purchase order. There's kind of like people who's got the innovation here, and they're sometimes quite small, or they've grown to a certain space. Like the conversations we've had with Circulose as well in our Real Circularity Summit have been about, okay, we've got this amazing thing, but then we need like the traction from the brands and the investment from the brands in this idea as well. So again, there's an interlocked sort of system, because no one business is going to do this alone, right? It's going to take these innovators and the brands coming together to actualize this stuff. So I think that's a big barrier that we have to come into a bit more of a collaborative aspect to be able to actualize on a lot of that stuff. And then there's another part where I think there's a lot of tick boxing in the larger industry, like, okay, let's measure CO2, let's focus on zero, right? I didn't get up this morning and say to myself, I'm going to go for zero today, right? Like we want to create much more benefits and much more progress in this space. So I think there's a siloed thinking inside of most businesses, even sometimes smaller ones as well, that focus on the things that are energetic at that time rather than a whole systems perspective. Now, I know that I'm not going to wave my magic wand and this happens in a day, right? I'm not naive. But yeah, that's what's not progressing this overall, I think.
And where do you think is the kind of like the highest bottleneck, so to speak? Is that the brands? Is it the consumers? Is it the regulatory body? How do we actually kind of get people together?
I think it's a massive dance that we all have to play, right? When I first started lecturing, even, I'd sit around with my students and we'd be like, is it the customer that drives this, or is it the industry, or is it legislation? I actually think it's a dance between all of them, right? And I think like legislation now with the EPR coming into play will be a huge, huge nudge to businesses, right? I think there'll be a lot of lobbying against it. And I think it will move people into a space of action, right? At least on their waste at first, right? I've had a lot of businesses come to ask me about, what do I do with my waste? I'm like, we design it to not be waste in the first place, right? But okay, we can get into mitigation to start off with.
Which is key, which is so important to start from the very, the conception
100%.
Of the product, because otherwise it's a little bit too late.
Well, yeah, you're still creating a linear product otherwise.
Exactly.
So we can create all the sharing economy systems and repair systems if it's not a part of a bigger circular model, we're still just debating linear product, and that's the problem, right? That we go like, businesses will go, I'm done. I've got my repair scheme. I've got my sharing economy thing. I can rent some stuff. But we need to go above and beyond that, because we're still creating in a linear centralized model, and it's basically still a degenerative path to landfill or somewhere else, right? Or incineration. Yeah, so there's a lot more to do, I think, than that. So I think the bottleneck is potentially, this part where we're not seeing the full benefits of what could be created, right? But I think we've come way farther than when I started 10 years ago. Definitely there's been massive progression,
which is a positive thing, which is really good to hear, right? You've been kind of in this space for such a long time, and you have seen the positive changes over the years, which is encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, it's still very incremental.
Yes.
But the fact that we're starting to see a little bit of nudge and a little bit of movement, it might be EPR that's pushed that sort of change into repair and sharing economy. But and that's a good thing, right? And the customers are asking for it as well. There are a good percentage of customers that are more aware now than they were 10 years ago, for sure, right? And customers will ask more of the companies. I've also seen a big entrepreneur sort of side of things, right? That with our academy, for instance, we've got people who join our academy from inside of large businesses who are really concerned, but they want to learn themselves for how that they can apply this inside of a business from the inside, right? We don't always have to quit our job and be an entrepreneur to do this. We can actualize it inside of a business as well. But there's massive interest in people inside of businesses who want to see more from the businesses that they're in, but they don't particularly want to quit either, right? So, and also from the student base, like I've got a lot of people that come to me for mentorship that are like, how do I get a job find a job in a conscious company? I'm like, okay,
that's a good sign.
I think both the customer base and the entrepreneurial base will push as well from the inside. So I see this momentum growing over time. It's so small sometimes. You think, well, there's not enough of us, right? But it is growing incrementally in all of those aspects, in legislation, in the customer, and inside of businesses. It might not be the top person that's thinking of it, or they might be thinking of it and trying to implement it. But again, at least there's iteration going on.
Yeah. I think what I find challenging for business owners or brands is just that they're thinking of it and they want to implement it. There's just so many things that they're bombarded with as well, that, these things are just kind of, push down the priority list. And
that's generally what's going on for most people, right? Like if you're trying to grow your own business, you're very much in a silo of, this is what I'm doing, this is my only channel type thing. And 100% granted, we're all running around trying to feed our children, have a roof over our heads, just like keep up with what's happening at the school or something like that. So of course, like adding this to anyone else's workload is going to be like, whew, that's a lot to do. But that's why external help is really important. Bring in the specialists, bring in the A-team, right? You, me, and all of the others that have massive great specialisms that I've been working with for ages, that could come together and really create a difference for a business, even in an agile way, even in a let's look at one product or one combined set of products with the same fabrication, right? And let's actually see what we can do with a business model, how we can create much more interest in your business by using circularity and using regenerative principles to create a star product for you, So I don't think we always have to look inside of a business, because like you say quite rightly, everyone's like, I've got to get on with this, I've got to make profits, I've got to do this. Okay, let us come and help with that.
Okay, so now I'd like to touch on the Sanja Stories, which is, the project that you've been working on. A very interesting project, and that's the reason why, I'm involved as well, because, I totally believe in this. And, we are bringing the digital solution into the mix, the digital ID, to promote the transparency in the supply chain, strengthen the communication, and also facilitates the circularity. Now, can you explain how this project aligns with your vision of circular fashion and what impact you believe it has on how both brands and consumers can understand the life cycle of a garment?
Because we've got like that really great tech, and because we've got like a bottom-up approach,
Yeah.
we're able to go in right down to the seed level to really have massive full transparency on it. Being able to map it with you has been really, really progressive for that kind of thing. So Sanja was created with from our ecosystem incubator, and our ecosystem incubates collaboration, right? So brings together micro players that otherwise would have been separately doing something in different specialisms, right? So we've got a Cardi London team who've got great access to that transparency base and great access right through to the seed, fully regeneratively grown, have massive integrity on what they're doing, right? Fully hand woven, working with CMT units in India, right? And then we brought together myself in terms of design and designing the business model itself. So everything that we're doing is kind of like trying to be as radical as we can within our capabilities. We then brought together like Garment Tech, who basically sizes it. So it's a genderless clothing. It's adjustable widthways, lengthways. It's thought about in terms of its evolution, like what's going to happen next to it. We have modular panels from the knees that come in and out so that you can upgrade it like over time. It comes completely naked, so there's no toxins on it at all. The customer, the most important thing is that the customer is a part of the story. And this is why it's called Sanja Stories. Sanja in Hindi means collaboration or partnership, which we thought was very poetic.
Yeah.
And then sustainability and the way that you share it has always been about stories, right? Whether we show the transparency story through your DPP or whether we're speaking it into existence here, right?
Yeah.
The customer part is a really important part as well, because we want them to be a part of the story. And with your DPP as well, we want to add in that customer journey. The customers themselves will join a customer buy-in club, somewhere where they pay the cost price first. We're going to tell you exactly what the cost price is, which is radical, right? Because in most brands, you're like, I'm not going to tell you what margins I'm getting. A part of the story. They'll come to events and they'll fit the jeans with us, right? So they can really get a feel for how much work really goes into creating one. This is one SKU, right? Like we're using one product just to test the waters.
Yes.
And over time, then they would get their gene and they would come and naturally dye it or print it in a non-toxic way, and they'd be able to then show their story of where it goes, who borrows it, right? Because literally, I can share this with my son, or my partner or whatever, right? Because it's so adjustable. So together, we created this star product that can be fully circular, that's mono material. Cardi London themselves have been doing a circular Cardi project to get that back into system mechanically, not just organically, right? So not just compostable, which it is. We want to go that extra mile and take it back mechanically. And it's an absolute star in terms of the product, but also the business model, right?
Yeah, and I really find it interesting. And for me, like the appeal as well. I mean, of course, I love the product. I love the kind of, the ethos of the whole concept. But, it is also for us to be involved, it's such an interesting project because we can provide this transparency from where everything is coming from. The storytelling is there, the transparency is there. And then, once a customer buys it, then you can start, like you said, building the stories with the customers using our tag, to see how durable the product is, how it can be shared, what is the color, what is, because the customer will dye themselves, which I think is like an amazing idea. and like build up these stories to kind of also how do you call it, increase that emotional attachment to that garment, right? So which is very important. It's not a throwaway garment. It's not something that you buy, you wear once, and then like you chuck it in the bin. It's a product that is full with that stories, not only the product stories but also the user stories. So
yeah, and I think that emotional durability of something is really important,
yes,
and also like it fits and I'll wear it and it's comfortable and it adjusts with my size, but also because I've personalized it,
yes.
it's become part of my world. I'm going to want to keep hold of it for a longer time, or at least share it with the people I love.
Yeah, and document it, and and somehow really building that stories inside the garment. And if it goes to the secondhand, for example, owner, after that he makes it even richer, right? And also like for the new user or the new owner of the garment, it's something which is really interesting.
Exactly, and then they'd be able to take on the DPP and put what they're doing with it.
Exactly. So it's like this continuous thing, which these connected products actually, that is like, which I find it a game changing. Is not only for the brands but also for consumers' experience, which I find very fascinating.
And the other benefit of it as well, business wise, has also and in our real circularity work, we call these processional benefits. There's processional benefits of the product, but there's actual processional benefits of being a part of the collaborative, right? So
Yes,
because we're able to share that star profile to star product together, we're then able to be seen in our respective businesses on a B2B sort of advantage.
Very exciting. So it's very exciting to see how technology, circularity, and storytelling are coming together for such an impactful change. Now, shifting the gears slightly, one point that you often raise is the need for a mindset change or shift when we talk about sustainability. So instead of focusing on climate disaster, you advocate for framing it as an intelligent, proactive transformation. So can you share more about why this approach is so important and how it can drive a more long-lasting change in the industry?
When I first started, I was a bit activisty, I've got to say. It was like, grr, boohoo bashing sort of thing going on, right? And I think at the time there was a lot of that. And I realized after some time and after actually going on much more of a regenerative journey, so I worked into regenerative leadership, which is why I kind of created the ecosystem and this more I want to say holistic way of thinking, but it's a regenerative way of thinking and creating business and things. And I realized that that way of being would switch people off, right? If you're trying to talk to people, saying we're going to die is probably like not the best motivational tool. And it's not to discount really what is going on, because the wicked problems in this world are massive. To start to inspire and also to show what's possible. So I wanted to be inspirational and share and do speaking and do all of this and create all of this stuff. But my main thing was to actually create examples of what's possible and to inspire with action, not activism, but actionism, I suppose, in a way, right? Okay.
It's a nice word, yes.
It's not even a word. I just made it up today. But like that we can actually show the future, even if that's in the most tiny way.
Yeah.
Those seeds of ideas of, the collaborative, the bigger ecosystem, the micro businesses that are created from it, even the outside collaborations that happen in our consultancies or beyond, like how we're working with businesses, how we're sharing with those, that literally shows what's possible in a small way, so that we can then start to say, look, there's validation for this, we can do this. There are other ways of running businesses, there are other ways of structuring your finance, there are other ways of running an industry, right? Overall, right? I've got lofty ideas long term, but I think that was a big turning point, right? Like going from this activist sort of like, and I think that's where most people wake up. They kind of go, hang on, look, fire, flames, what's going on over there? Why is no one else seeing it? Right. I remember seeing a video by Charles Eisenstein, one of my great inspirations in the regenerative space, or in the systems space. I suppose he'd call himself more of a systems thinker. Right. There was one video called The Maze, and he speaks about this. Why is no one like seeing this? Why is everyone talking about Kim Kardashian's underwear or lack thereof, right? Because we're indoctrinated to this way of doing things. We're focusing on that because that's what we've done. That's what we continue to do, right?
Yeah.
And to step out of that is a mindset shift in oneself as a new entrepreneur or a new future sort of person. But to get like that takes something from people who are already indoctrinated into the business as usual system, and to be compassionate for that, right? So with his video, I was then sort of like sitting in, this might take a very long time, and that's okay. You know, and it's about this constant evolution and transition over time, right, for mindset shifts, and to be compassionate about everyone else's understanding of the world as they see it.
Right, that's such a powerful approach, I should say, and I think it's one that everybody can resonate, right? The brands, the consumers. So,
100%.
Oh, thank you for that. So, before we wrap up, Rachel, you've been on this sustainability journey for many years now, and looking ahead, where do you see the fashion industry in the next 5 to 10 years, and what key changes do you hope to see in terms of sustainability and circularity?
I see it being kind of like 5 to 10 years is a very short time, I think, for me, right? I feel that there will be an evolutionary nudge, especially with the legislation coming out, that will nudge businesses, and we'll start to see some transformation. I'd like for more percentage of ranges to move and transition towards circular models and business models and finance. And I'd like to see a lot more cash and injection coming into the innovation space rather than the mitigation space. So I can see that there is a sense of trying to clean up the waste and the linearity that we've created, and that's important. It's definitely on a kind of governmental level when they're like faced with all of this stuff. But I think to actually create it, we're going to have to see a lot more in invested in innovation. And that's not just only of the product, but in terms of the new business models that are out there. So I think that there will be movements towards those if I have anything to do with it. But yeah, who knows where the political landscape will take us. Seeing what's happening in the US, for example, so it really is sort of like what's going to happen next.
We certainly are living in a very uncertain climate, right? In everything political and so forth. So very unsettling time, so to speak.
Indeed. But in the great words of Buckminster Fuller, he always said, you don't change the system by fighting the current system. You change the system by creating a new system that's more compelling than the old one.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a really good one.
One quote I really stand on, right? So
we're going to have to.
let's create and show what's possible and invite people to be a part of it.
Cool. Super inspiring. I love that. Now, so thank you so much for joining us today, Rachel, and for sharing your insights and your inspiring quotes and knowledge. So it's clear that, what you're doing is amazing. And, projects like Sanja Stories and your work with Circular Earth are helping to create this new system that you just kind of mentioned. So that's amazing. Before we go, where can our listeners reach you?
The best website to go to, I have many, but everything is linked to my website, that is www.rscan.com. And you can find all of the different avenues of our work via my positioning website for sure.
Okay, and LinkedIn as well, right?
And LinkedIn, yeah, you can look for me there on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay, and if anybody wants to, get involved and be part of the Sanja Stories community, where can they go?
That one is sanjastories.com, so you can go and find out all about that project there and sign up and become a part of the story.
So for our listeners, be sure to follow Inspiring Thursday for more conversations with thought leaders in the industry. Don't forget, of course, to check out Vestis Labs. Follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram and for more exciting updates. And until next time, I'm Fonny, and this is Inspiring Thursday. Thank you very much.